Today, I want to address the medical system. Now, there's no point in me ranting about this because it is what it is. But I think it's worth pointing something out for people that really may not know. So, in New Zealand, we have a public health system just like they do in the UK. In the UK, it's the NHS. In here, they call it the DHB, the District Health Boards. Each district health board operates separately but under government funding, and each district health board's performance is rated, and then their next year's funding is given based on the performance from last year. So if they manage to meet all their targets and everybody gets off of the waiting lists and into surgery at the times that they've been asked, at the target times, then they get all of their funding for next year. If they miss the targets and people end up waiting on the waiting list longer than they should, then they get the funding cut the following year. So let us start there. A public health system that is struggling to cope with demand and can't meet all its targets and can't get the people in through the surgical doors fast enough are less likely to do it next year when the funding's cut because they couldn't do it last year. It seems like a backwards system to me. For example, Southland, which is well known to be one of the worst for performance in the country. They call it the postcode lottery. So if you live in Southland, you get a second-class health care system. And I don't see why that's fair, because just because I live here does not mean that I should get anything less than anyone else in the country. I pay the same taxes. I'm a citizen just like everyone else, all that sort of jazz. So this public health system that couldn't meet its targets last year is get its funding cut. So it's not going to meet them next year. So it'll get its funding cut. And it just seems like a downward spiral that they're never going to get out of because of the screwed up way that the funding works for target setting. Now, I know there has to be target setting, but surely can nobody see how detrimental that is to the public health system's service to its patients? And then, if you don't know anything about New Zealand, we've got another weird system called ACC, Accident Compensation Something, Corporation, I don't know, something or other. Accident Compensation Something. The words doesn't matter. And it is the weirdest thing I've ever heard. There is nothing like it in the UK. I can't even compare it to anything because I don't even know if anyone else has a system like it. So if you have an accident, and let's say my leg had to be amputated because I had a car crash, then I get funded by ACC, which is private healthcare. So I would go into a private hospital and I would get private healthcare, and everything would be much higher funded. I would get wheelchairs paid for me, prosthetic legs paid for me, and I wouldn't have to wait. There would be no messing about and arguing about who I've got to see and when and all that sort of jazz. It would all just get done, bam, 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 get done straight away. If I have some type of medical problem that requires me to have my leg amputated, then I go into the public health system. So that's like, well, we don't fucking care about you. So at the moment, I asked for a back to work plan, and I was got a letter from the district health board saying that my request to go back to work was not important, and that I was on a long-term waiting list of 12 weeks or more. Excuse me? Do you not want your people back in the workforce? Obviously not. But then still, I'm not getting any funding from anywhere else. So what in the hell do you expect me to do? So I get given a public health system wheelchair, which is a crappy, cruddy, rattly old thing, and I've got to be in it 24/7. Now, I have been put on the list for long-term wheelchair. Now, I don't even know what that means, but I'm hoping it means something slightly better than a short-term loan, which is what I've got at the moment. However, the waiting list for that is a year. I mean, what in the actual? I need it now. I don't need it a year from now. So that leaves me in a catch-22 because the wheelchair I've got at the moment isn't performing for me. I can't go any distance without it cracking and rattling and all sorts of other nonsense. There is nothing I can do about it apart from wait for a year, by which point I'd like to think I was standing on a prosthetic leg and I wouldn't need the bloody thing anyway. But if I had had a car crash and my leg had been chopped off in a car crash, then I would have the wheelchair ting like this, and it would be the best wheelchair that they could get, and it wouldn't matter about the cost and all that jazz. That doesn't make sense to me at all. I've priced wheelchairs to see whether I could afford to get my own, and we're talking 6 to 10 grand. How is someone who has been told then the fact they want to go back to work is not important, and they have to be in a 12-week waiting list, and has been told that the wheelchair that they've got, that they need a better one, but it doesn't matter, it's a 1-year waiting list. How the hell is that person supposed to function in society when they're the things that I'm dealing with? Yet, it's very much a second-class health system, yet if some misfortune had happened to me and someone crashed into me or something or other, I fell off a cliff or whatever, I get A-star treatment. It doesn't make sense to me at all. Why there needs to be 2 classes of system, I don't know. I have done nothing wrong. I have not led an unhealthy life. I don't have high cholesterol. I don't have diabetes. I've never smoked. I'm fit. Well, I was until this. Personal trainer. I actually started a business in New Zealand and I employ New Zealanders, and this is how the health system is treating me. How do you think that makes me feel? It makes me feel like nobody gives a shit about their patients at all in this country. But only if something terrible happens to you, we'll give you shit about it then. But if some type of, medical misfortune happens to you, well, we don't care about that at all. Please explain, because it's making me feel really quite damn frustrated that there is 2 tiers of system, and I'm not even sure if people even know this. So, it took me a year to even get the thing diagnosed in the first place. Now, I've heard of 2 other people at least that this has happened to, vascular problems that have gone undiagnosed. This is wrong. If the public health system is being funded by the government and all those doctors in the public health system miss something, there should be some type of comeback. But there isn't, because there's this crazy law in New Zealand that means that I can't sue them or do any damn thing with them. What have I got to do? I've got to deal with ACC. Yeah, great. And then they have to decide whether I've got a case or not. So we're back around to the beginning, because ACC aren't going to be wanting to be funding anything that is anything other than medical that was related to an accident. They argue about everything and don't want to fund anything. This is just typical private health care insurance. We're not going to pay out unless we really bloody have to. So I'm really feeling quite frustrated about the really crazy, screwed up medical system here in New Zealand that is supposed to be there to serve the people, but doesn't actually serve anyone unless you have some terrible catastrophic thing happen to you, which I really wouldn't wish on anyone, but it's the only way you can get anything done around here. So that is my gripe for today. Did you know that? Can anybody tell me that I'm wrong? Is there anything that I've missed here? Because I feel like I'm in a catch-22, that unless I've got tens of thousands of dollars that I can spend on walking aids, there is fuck all I can do about anything. I was trying to fill in a lottery grant, and I was talking to a physiotherapist about whether it was worth even considering this, and it said, how far can you walk without walking aids? And the smallest category was around the house. Well, I'm sorry, I can't even get off the couch without a walking aid, so I don't know what the hell you're talking about. So I'm just feeling a little bit frustrated today, and I wanted to explain the health system because it is just the craziest thing I've ever had to deal with, and it is the most challenging mentally in this whole thing. The chopping my leg off part was the easy part. Dealing with the rest of my life and all of the shit I have to deal with in order to get what I would call human decency and decent public health care is the thing that's causing me the most grief. So, yeah, if you've got anything to say about that, I would love to hear from you. If you work in the public health system or the private health system, have got anything to say about that, I would love to hear from you, because I'm feeling a bit fucked off about the whole health system right now. And like I said, there's no point me ranting about it because it's not going to change it, but it doesn't stop me feeling fucked off about it all the same. So that's the public health system in New Zealand. It's just a little bit crap.